Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we got the Dodge Ram Classic Warlock Edition back in the shop. If you remember, we did bumpers on this truck not long ago, but today we're talking the Rough Country Quicklift 2-inch lift struts for the front, as well as their forged upper control arms. Then we're going to give this truck a little more up action in the front. So why don't we tear into this and get going?
I wanna taste the pain. I think I'm seeing all red. 2 bullets in the gun, 1 shot to the head. I need a blank space. 'Cause everything is a threat, but I never back down. Man, I'd rather be dead. I'm making love to fate. And she look better in bed. Never walk this life till I take my last breath. I wanna make a change. I got 1 life left, so I'm gonna go down swinging. Don't you forget.
All right, so this Dodge Ram Classic, as you guys know, he does a lot of camping with it, and he just ordered a custom camper top for it as well. So this will be going away with a completely custom, I can't remember the name of the company, but it's killer. But we did the bumpers recently. We've got the wireless Rough Country light pod as well coming in for this thing. So we're gonna be wiring up some more of the lights for him. We've got airbags in the back of this thing as well, so we have them up about 40 pounds. The truck has about a 3.5-inch rake right now. We opted for the Rough Country Quicklift 2-inch Quicklift struts for this thing. He's got a heavy bumper as well as a winch on it as well that we put on. So the catch to this is this. The Quicklift struts, the Rough Country, they're made for the V8 model. This is a V6. Difference being is about 250 pounds, give or take, in weight. However, so it may end up being more than a 2-inch lift. We don't really want more than 2.5, so that's the goal. That's the end of the day. Hopefully that's about where we're at. But we added about 200 plus pounds worth of bumper and winch on the front of this thing. So in all, it should be very, very close to the V8. The customer, we've talked to the customer about it. They're okay with it. So just keep that in mind. When you order these things, whether you're getting it for the V8 or V6 model, they are made for the V8. But let me show you what we got. All right, guys, here they are. These are the N3, I believe, series quick lift struts from Rough Country. So this is a 2-inch lift strut. They have different lines and series of these, but this is what he chose to go with, as well as their forged upper control arms. They also make these in a silver. He opted for the red. The nice thing about these, they also make a set of these for like a 3-inch plus lifted truck or a 3-inch lifted truck. But this here are essentially stock control arms, but not. These are forged much ruggeder aluminum than stock, and their ball joints have way more articulation and more heavy duty for those lifted trucks, for instance, a 2-inch lift. Do you need these to put this in? You do not. However, we opted for that for longevity and durability because he does use this truck off-road to some degree. Now, it's not a hardcore wheeler, but he does some off-road camping in it as well. Now, I think we'll get her inside and tear it apart. Our cement in the shop is really flat. So I'm taking some rough preliminary measurements from the center of the wheel, the center of the fender. We're about 37 and a quarter in the front. And you can't see me, but we are 40 and a quarter, 40 and a half in the rear. So we'll just say 37 and 40. Right now we have a 3-inch difference between the rear and the front. If we get 2 to 2.5 inch, then we'll still have a rake. Any more than that or anything else, we're gonna adjust with the airbags, and he may go with a heavier duty spring later. But like I said, right now it's sitting at about a 3-inch rake. That's perfect. This is the perfect candidate for those quick lift struts. So I'll set the lift up, we'll get these wheels off that weigh a freaking ton, and then we'll tear into it. All right, I just wanted to, bear in mind, I'm not trying to sell these super handy material lifts at all, and I paid for this one full price. But I have a bad back, so whenever I can utilize using this thing, and this has got the Load Range D tires on it, he's upgraded these things weigh about 80 pounds. So whenever I can use this thing, it literally has forks under it. You can go up underneath the tire, you can lift up on it, once you take the last lug nut out, and go ahead and wheel this off and then lower it back down with the hand crank, and you didn't have to bust your back at all. It's worth mentioning, honestly, you can buy these things all over the place, and I got mine on Amazon. So, and it was like 300 and some change, so it's money well spent for people with a bad back. I just wanted to mention that. So now that we got the thing up on the lift here, the Dodge Ram on the lift here, I'm gonna run through the basic procedure of how it's gonna go. It was really nice of him, he took it off-roading this weekend before he brought it here. It was so clean before he did that too. But part of the job's the upper control arm, and the other one is the strut. You know, to get to that, and I believe the instructions will tell you to take off your ABS wire from your, obviously you got to remove it from your upper control arm because we're changing those. But it tells you to unbolt the caliper as well. I feel like there's plenty of hose on here to let this control arm come down out of the way. So we may try that before we take the caliper off. Maybe we'll be wrong, but we're gonna undo the upper ball joint from the control arm itself. That basically frees your control arm up. Then you're gonna be taking the hardware out of the control arm itself. I lost my light. Itself. So that there will be retained. You're gonna use that hardware again. Now, as far as the strut assembly goes, you've got this off. Not sure about the caliper yet, but we're also going to be undoing the tie rod end as well as the lower mount, and then you get your upper strut mount bolts right here. I don't know if it's the exact order, but that's the job in a nutshell. You'll flip this out of the way. You'll be able to put the control arm down a little bit, fish that strut out of there, fish the new one in there because this won't be in your way. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and loosen our tie rod ends. So 21 millimeter, I believe, smack that with a hammer. However you'd like to get that out of there. These will come off nicely because the truck is so clean and so new. And then we'll attack for the upper ball joint the same way. We'll undo our ABS wires, and then we'll catch up with you from there. All right, guys, so we got the upper ball joint bolt out. We got our tie rod bolt out. And then there is enough slack on the brake line, just so you know if everything's turned and out of the way, that you can leave the caliper on. So depending on the situation, I guess that every truck model is a little bit different. Just be aware of that. You don't want any tension on that brake line, so pay attention to that if you got to wire stuff out of the way. And that's why I think they say go ahead and take the brake caliper off so you don't risk that, but you've got to pay attention to that itself. So as you know, we're replacing the upper control arm. This is not necessary to take this out in order to get the strut out of here. So what we're gonna do, you're eating beef jerky, bud. Cameraman Caleb's eating beef jerky and it smells freaking delicious. Can you tell I'm hungry? Anyway, what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and take off this upper control arm because it'll just make getting at the strut a little easier, and we're changing it anyway. So it's got self-retained nuts on this side, and on the outer sides here, can you still see through that, bud? On the outer sides here, we're gonna use 21 millimeter wrench, I believe. Take these out. You're gonna reuse the hardware on your new upper control arms. Then we're gonna attack the lower strut bolt, which is a 24 on the nut and a 21 on the head, I believe. And I believe the upper control arm bolts are 21s. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this right out of here and out of our way. Then we're gonna attack the lower strut bolt itself. And then the upper strut bolts come after that, and out it comes. So I'm gonna go ahead and take out these upper bolts. Almost out. All right, so here's your upper control arm hardware. You're reusing this hardware, so you gotta remember how it's oriented and how it goes in. And this nut right here will hit against the frame, so it's pretty nice. And this truck being so new, that's nice as well, because they don't always come out that way. And then your control arm itself literally is just gonna pull out. Now your main, you're gonna need an alignment after you do any front end work like this. And on these trucks, it's right in the bottom. They have the big cam on the bottom here. So he's gonna take this when he leaves here and go right to an alignment shop. One thing to mention on the upper control arms as well, our replacement ones, there's a right and a left. If you look at it, it's a little bit different. In the instructions, it calls it out, and I'll show you that when we put our other one on. But I'm gonna go ahead now and I'm gonna loosen up, take out the lower bolts, then we'll attack our upper bolts, and then this thing is completely taken apart.
All right, everyone, we ran into a little interference taking the upper control arm out. This bolt hits this piece right here, and we can't move it any farther, so we're gonna have to take off this whole piece, and so we can take this piece off.
All right, got Caleb in here working now, so that's great. Yeah, what he was saying is this bracket right here, it's just two 13 millimeter bolts that we're gonna take out, just enough to loosen the bracket so it leans in so we can pull the rest of this bolt out. So that's the passenger side forward most upper control arm bolt, so you can remember that. They don't mention that in directions. All right, buddy, let's do it, take it out. So Caleb got both the bolts out. Out comes the passenger side upper control arm. You just set it right there on the ground. One other thing I did notice, not all trucks have the sway bar link set up like this, I guess, but this one does, and it wasn't mentioned, but in order to get any movement in your lower control arm, you're gonna wanna disconnect that lower sway bar itself. Therefore, you can get the control arm moved. I went ahead and take out the lower strut bolts. Now we'll take out these on the top. There's 3, I believe, 15 millimeters. Then we can move that arm down just enough to pull this out. Okay, see this? Little egg on my face. Remember I said you can do this without removing the brake calipers? You can get the strut out without removing the brake caliper. However, when it comes time, we haven't even got there yet, I'm just kind of planning ahead. When it comes time to really pushing this control arm down out of the way to allows the longer lifted strut in place, we don't want to be dealing with the brake hose getting too tight. So we went ahead with the 21 millimeter. It's just 2 bolts, took out the 2 bolts for the caliper, slid her off, and then we have it hanging out of the way. So this thing's got plenty of slack, and that's not going to change. So we should have done that right at the beginning. However, we did it now. It's done. It's out of the way. It's not a big deal. So honestly, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, just hang them out of the way and be done with it. So I wanted to mention that, but now we're to the point where we got the 3 bolts, 15 millimeters, to take the upper hardware off the upper strut, and then out comes the strut. Everything's completely apart. All right, guys, we got everything completely stripped out. So the strut is out of there, upper control arm's out of there. It's literally completely stripped, ready to go. So what we'll do now in kind of the reverse order is we'll fit the new strut up in there. We'll start the upper nuts, just lightly start those. And then we can slide the control arm. We're gonna have to push way down to get that bottom bolt in, but that's fine. We can do that at that point and get that bottom bolt in. Then we put the upper control arm in and we can start the whole, everything else getting reassembled. So I'll grab the strut and we can get it in there. How cool is this, guys? We got Caleb in here. He's actually in here turning some wrenches with me, dropping nuts.
That sounds kind of weird.
But he's to the point he's ready to take this strut out. Good job, buddy. All right, guys, we're throwing the upper strut in there. Well, the entire strut assembly in there. But it's oriented so it only goes in one way. So it kind of like, you see the flat on the back here, and then the kind of point towards the front. That goes to the outside of the vehicle there. And yes, the way these are and they install, it doesn't matter if this goes over there or over here. The spring's gonna end up where it's gonna end up. So you're gonna go ahead and put this one in. Like so. I'm gonna need a nut, buddy. Can you get me? So once it's in there, Caleb's gonna grab me a nut. We're gonna get it started. You don't pull it down yet, bud. We're gonna get all 3 of them started on the top. Therefore, thank you. You don't worry about this thing falling down on you before you prop it up over the control arm. So surprisingly, these aren't that much longer, but they are obviously gonna be stiffer. So Caleb's prying that down. I'm gonna go ahead and pop that down over. Okay, come back up. Perfect, just like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and slide in that factory hardware that we retained. All right, control arms are next, and keep an eye on the orientation. There is a passenger and a driver, and the RC goes towards the front of the vehicle on either one. So that'd be the driver's side, this would be the passenger side, and it does have more of a sweep to it on the front of the vehicle. So keep that in mind. Ball joints will need to be greased as well. I'm gonna go ahead and throw these in with the old hardware, and then we'll, I believe they send, yep, they send new nuts for the ball joints, so we'll get those in and torque down as well. So pretty straightforward. They just slide in, and then you reverse putting your hardware in like you had before. Start with the driver's side here. All right, so basically, as far as greasing these goes, this plastic cap comes right off and your grease fittings right underneath there. So once you get it in place, you go ahead and grease that. So don't forget to do that before you send this thing on its way, grease it. I got this one slid up in place. They don't tell you this, but what I like to do is to have it in kind of a neutral position, like where that thing would ride on average when you tighten these down and torque them down. So I'll probably hold it someplace up in here when I tighten them. That's where it's gonna hold that bushing in. All right, guys, we got our control arms all in and torqued down. I just want to show you something that I do, what they call a witness mark or a torque mark. I go ahead and mark my fasteners, bolts, head, nuts, whatever, so you can kind of see if you had any movement or anything, if anything's loosened up or moved on you, just a quick visual reference. It's just something I like to do, and a lot of old school mechanics will do that. We hit everything, as all our fasteners that way as we torque them as well. So it's a good way to go ahead and track things as you're torquing them. All right, guys, we're wrapping it up here. We go ahead and we got the upper ball joint all tightened down. We got our witness mark here, or a torque mark, whatever you want to call it. And I went ahead and greased the upper ball joints as well. So at this point, now you can put that cap back on. And I would say after another 100 miles, I'd throw some more grease at it, but we got the boots pretty plumped up there with some grease. Now we're gonna go ahead and throw the caliper back on, get that tightened up, reroute or reconnect our brake and ABS wire, then our tie rod end and our sway bar link, and we can set this thing on the ground and see what it looks like. All right, everyone, I believe this gets our front end all tightened down and all reassembled. We're good to go. Caliper's back on. Always double check your brake hose and your ABS wiring, make sure not interfering with anything. And give everything a once over. Once you've gone ahead and got everything tightened, go ahead and look for those witness marks. That's the nice thing about those. All right, I tightened it, I marked it, we're good. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but we're ready to throw the tires back on this thing, set it on the ground. We'll check our airbag pressure in the rear to make sure we're at least at 50 and see where this thing's sitting. Yeah, she's sitting on its own weight now. All right, guys, here it is sitting on its own weight. Now, the alignment is way off. It's leaving here and going to the alignment shop. So your wheels are tipped in, which is actually going to make it a little higher. Just going to throw it off. I also haven't taken it for a ride yet to settle the suspension out. So the airbags have 50 pounds in them, and right now we're sitting at 41 in the rear, so he was low on his airbags when he came in, and 40 and a quarter in the front. So we gained a full 3 inches off the front of this thing. Now, keep in mind, that is without the alignment and without taking the suspension, taking it for a ride to settle it. I'm about to go take it for a ride and settle it out. We can bring it back in here and double check, but until he gets the alignment, you're not truly gonna know. But definitely looking aggressive in there. And you can see those nice red upper control arms too. Totally different look. As you can see, the wheels tipped a little bit. Our camera angles are way off, as well as your toe, and that's expected when you do a lift. So let me hop in this thing, I'll take it for a ride, and get right back to you. All right, I figured I'd take you along for the ride, and obviously I'm expecting this thing to drive a lot stiffer, and that's what the customer wanted, to be honest with you. He wanted something a lot stiffer. He said it was way too plush in the front. Well, I don't think it's gonna be the case anymore, but we're gonna go ahead and take it for a cruise, I don't know, 3-4 miles around the block here, so we can get things to kind of settle in. It is stiffer, but not bad. We'll try to hit a few bumps here and see how it goes. All right, so honestly, it's a little stiffer, and he's got load range D tires on here. These aren't regular half-ton truck tires. He's got the heavier tires on here as well. It doesn't ride bad at all, honestly. I mean, I'm used to driving my diesel truck and stuff, so I'm probably not a good judge, but we'll see what he says. But honestly, so far, I'm not complaining. I think it gives a good ride. We'll see what he says, and we'll go back, we'll get her in the shop, double check our measurements. I don't know if it's gonna have moved much being so new, but I'm sure after the alignment it's gonna drop it at least another ½ inch in the front, which will put it just about exactly where we wanted it. All right, I remeasured it. We're sitting at 40 now, so it dropped about a ¼ inch or so, just cruising it down the road. Did I say 40? 40 and a quarter and 41 and a quarter in the rear right now with 50 pounds in the airbag. So it's actually sitting perfect, and it's probably going to drop at least another ¼ to a ½ inch when he gets that front end alignment done as well. So I'll go ahead and back it up and we'll take a walk around. All right, guys, here it is outside. As you can see, we brought that front up quite a bit. I'd say roughly about 3 inches. Now keep in mind, those are 2-inch lift struts for a V8 on a V6. Now, based on our calculations with the weight of the extra bumper and the winch, we should be close or within 100 pounds of the weight of a V8. So I think this is going to settle some more, and then like I said, with the alignment, it's going to settle a little more. It'll probably put us around 2.5 inch when we're all said and done, I'd be willing to bet, and things settle out after a few weeks of driving this thing with an alignment. But it still has a rake to it. The truck still has a rake, which is good. I think a good upgrade in the future, because it's still stock springs in the rear, would be a heavier duty spring to go with those airbags, or maybe even like a 1 or 2 inch lifted spring for the rear. It would take a little bit of the load off the airbags itself. I also think this thing would look pretty killer with wheel spacers, or a different set of wheels with a little bit more aggressive offset for a better stance. But as you can see, well, it's already dirty from taking it off the road. But this is a cool rig, and it's coming right along. The next time you see it, we're gonna have it in here doing the Rough Country wireless 8-switch pod, I guess, where you bring all your wires to any lights or accessories that you have under the hood, and then you bring this one switch panel inside the hood and you wire that up. That's next for this truck. So So this is a pretty cool build. It's a pretty fun build. Like I said, he goes some off-road camping and stuff with it. Nothing extreme, but you're gonna see it in here more and more as we continue to do upgrades for him, and then he gets that sweet camper on the back of this thing. So I hope you liked today's episode. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button because it means so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Scott Flippin' Customized.